Talk 49. 49.
My guest today is Rebecca Hughes, and I'm speaking to her in Yorkshire, in England. Rebecca Hughes, a very warm welcome to you.
Good afternoon, Nigel.
Good afternoon. How does your normal day start, Rebecca? How does your normal day begin?
My normal day normally starts with something very exciting called doing the washing.
Doing the washing.
Yeah, I feed the birds because we have pheasants that come in, and we have a jay, European jay, and we have lots of other little birds too, and it's all quite fascinating.
We should say, Becky, that you live in a village in the middle of Yorkshire. Would that be correct? Yeah. Okay, so you're in the middle of the country. Actually, you're in a little village. What's the name of your little village?
Easttoft.
Easttoft. Tell us a little bit about Easttoft.
Well, it's has a village pub, and we have a post office that visits us once a week on a Tuesday morning at the village hall.
The village hall.
It's a very small community.
A very small community. How important is the village hall for the community in Easttoft?
I think it's very important because they hold all sorts of classes there for, yoga and all sorts of things for people that want to do that sort of thing. There is also a large sort of shed cupboard thing on the recreation ground where people can take their second-hand books and bring away another one to read. Okay. That started in lockdown, which was very good. And there is a primary school in the village too. So that's good. And the church, of course.
What role does the church play in people's lives in Easttoft?
I think it helps the people a lot, but because the vicar has to go to several parishes, I think they only sort of visit Easttoft, say, once a month or once every 6 weeks, because they have to go to all sorts of different places. So, but people do enjoy that, so that's good.
Do many people go when the church comes to Easttoft?
A fair few go.
Okay.
They have a lot of people when there is a wedding or a christening or something like that. Okay. Or a funeral.
Of
course.
What sort of work is there in Easttoft, Becky? What sort of work is there?
Mainly farm work, because we are surrounded by arable fields, so it's all ploughing and growing, food and stuff like that, really. We have a lot of tractors and combine harvesters that go past the door.
You said farming, Bex.
Yeah.
What are the main crops that grow in your area?
Oh, that's quite a difficult one because there's a lot of grain, of course. There's also they've been growing a lot of willow for fuel, and there's also, I suppose, other vegetable crops, potatoes and all sorts of food bits. Actually, beans. Beans are very good if you have them near you, because I keep bees, and bees like bean flowers.
You keep bees, Becky. You had a lot of bad luck last year, I know. Tell us a bit about that and what's going to happen in the future.
Well, the bees got acute bee paralysis virus this last year, and they actually died out. But I have sterilised my hives, and I have 2 new colonies that will come probably in about a month. When the weather is warm enough, they'll come then. So that's very exciting news for me, because bees aren't exactly noisy, but the garden seems very, very quiet. And it's almost like the soul has gone out of the garden, which is a bit silly. But I'm getting Buckfast bees, and they're very quiet bees. They're very good for a garden environment.
Buckfast bees. Do they come from Buckfast Abbey, maybe?
Yes, originally they did. They were bred by a brother, Adam, but he's passed away several years ago now. But yeah, the bees still are around, so we can get hold of them. And the National Bee Unit use Buckfast bees too, because they're quiet in nature. They're very good for doing work with them in their laboratory.
And are these Buckfast bees resilient to illnesses and all of these bad things? Are they good survivors?
Well, they're quite good survivors. I think it just depends on what is around out there, because bees have, most bees have Varroa destructor, which is a mite that causes all sorts of secondary diseases, but we treat them for that every year anyway. But it depends what bees other people keep that live near you, because the drones, the males part of the bees, they're quite indiscriminate. They will move from hive to hive. So it's they could spread disease very easily.
So these drones, these worker bees, they actually go from hive to hive. I never knew that, Bex.
Yeah, but it's the drones, not the worker bees.
Oh, what's the difference?
The worker bees are female.
Oh, right, okay. And the drones are the boys.
Yeah.
And what do they normally do, the drones, except fly around?
They mate.
Oh,
they don't do really anything else. And when they've mated, they die.
All right. And when they're flying around from hive to hive, they're looking for a queen bee to mate with, I would imagine.
Yeah, but they all fly up in the air and go to a special place. And the queen will mate with lots of bees.
Okay.
So we're just hoping to keep my bees. We don't want them to swarm away. So the queen I will be getting will be mated already. So hopefully they won't be swarming this year anyway.
So keeping bees is quite a complicated affair by the sounds of it. It's not just a very simple thing, is it?
No, it's not.
What about wasps and mice, these natural enemies of bees? How do you handle this? How do you handle these?
Wasps, I put out wasp traps, but the wasps can kill off a vulnerable hive. But mice, during the winter, that's when they can cause damage, because they don't go in during the summer months because the bees would just kill them. But during the winter months, when it's cold, the bees, they don't precisely hibernate. It's very weather dependent, but they will cluster to keep warm. So a mouse can just basically walk in the hive and set up a nest, and they will just eat all the comb and the stores and basically kill off the hive, because they would lose their stores. But I put a a metal band across the entrance which have small holes in them, and it's called a mouse guard, and you pin it to the front with drawing pins, and the mice can't go in it, but the bees can still come in and out if the weather's warm enough for them to fly.
Okay, so you can protect against mice. Bees are very, very social little people, if you want. People are social too. What about things like amateur theatre, these social occasions, dances? Do these go on in the village as well?
Not really, because the nearby small market town, they hold amateur theatre and they have more facilities, and so more people would go somewhere else to do all these other things.
And where do people go shopping?
They would actually go to either Goole, which is a port town near here, or they would go to Scunthorpe, or maybe even to Doncaster. And I sometimes go down to a place called Louth, which is in Lincolnshire. Yeah, it's Lincolnshire. It's very pretty there.
Okay. And what happens in Louth, Becky?
They have all sorts of different shops rather than the big supermarkets.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I think they've managed to keep most of the large supermarkets out, so the local businesses can keep going, which is good.
Where do the kids go to school?
The local children, the small children, go to the local primary school in Easttoft, and then when they get a bit bigger, they go to the bigger school in Crowell, and then they will move on to sixth form college in Scunthorpe, and then from then on they will go maybe to university or to work.
We've just come through a terrible lockdown, and in Europe we have home office, people working from home. Has this become part of life in Easttoft as well, your little village?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. A lot of people work from home now.
Is this not a great advantage for people living in small villages in England?
I think it probably works well for all sorts of people, but obviously some people prefer mixing with other people because they have a lot of mental health issues.
What sort of mental health issues are people getting?
I think they get quite lonely, that they need to see and speak with other people.
Okay. And of course, being isolated at home is cutting all these people off, isn't it?
Yes, that's why they started the local Take Your Book, where you could go and swap books. And when it was Halloween, people put a lantern outside of their house so that the children could go to where the lantern was and get their tricks or treats. And they had, for the small children, a teddy bear hunt. And so we all put teddy bears in our upstairs windows so they could walk around the village and spot the teddy bear. And then they would get a prize. Yeah, this was all part of lockdown life, really.
So,
lots and lots of people were walking.
So the lockdown has brought people together in a different way than before, maybe.
Oh, yes, definitely, because I think people have got to know other people that they probably didn't even know lived here.
So it was a kind of win-win situation. And is this lockdown life likely to carry on or even become more and more?
I don't think so now. I think everybody now thinks life is sort of back to normal, whatever normal was. But I think people have gone back to work, but a lot of people are working part-time from home and part-time in an office or wherever it is they work.
Okay, so that was the lockdown and things are getting back to normal. How is your life being normal? Are you happy being normal again, or are you missing certain lockdown things?
Oh, it actually doesn't really make much difference to me, but I'm very happy because now I can go out and go horse riding and things like that.
How important is horse riding for you?
Oh, immensely, because I've always used to ride, and it's only half an hour once a fortnight, and it's just very nice. It just takes me out the house, and it's only 3 miles away.
Okay.
Riding school is just up the road.
Brilliant. So you're in for a year of new bees are coming. You're riding again on your horse. Lockdown is finishing.
Yeah.
Have you got one more wish for this year?
My garden is beginning to look very good, and I'm just hoping everything will all come to fruition in my garden.
And we hope so too. Rebecca Hughes from Yorkshire in England, thank you very, very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me, Nigel.
Talk 49.